Hello and welcome to the show.
I want to talk about watches today. Specifically, I want to talk about my Garmin Fenix 7X watch, which I've had for exactly 1 year this month. I want to compare it to what I had previously and just give you some thoughts 1 year on about what I think of this watch. So the Garmin Fenix series has been running for quite some time now, alongside some of the other watches like the Forerunners, and I've dabbled with the Fenix ranges before, but typically my watches have been a Forerunner watch. Going from my 201, this was awesome. This is a step change from what I had before because this had GPS on it. That was quite a game changer in its day, which is probably now nearly 20 years ago. My Garmin 920X T, which did not have a heart rate sensor on it, this is the first watch I would wear as a daily watch, which I would typically wear all day, every day, but it had no heart sensor on it, which meant that you would still need to pair it with a heart strap every time you went out. And if you did anything longer than a 6-mile run at that point, you would get cut to ribbons by the heart straps that Garmin was coming out with. They did improve them, probably about the time the 920 came out actually. They did improve the straps, but at the time that I was wearing them, I would do anything longer than a 6-mile run, which typically for Ironman you're doing some 6 miles, you're doing some 5Ks, but you're also doing quite a few runs of 8 miles, 10 miles, 12 miles, up to about 18 miles at one point during the latter part of your Ironman training. And I would just leave the strap behind, which meant I didn't have any good heart rate data for most of my long runs. Now Garmin did improve that, and some of the straps they have out now don't really have this issue. I've used them since, and they don't have this issue. And the same goes for the Wahoo Ticker X, which I've had for quite some time, which looks like it will really chafe badly, but doesn't at all. In fact, you don't even notice you're wearing it. So heart straps have improved a lot. But at the time that this was out, having to use heart straps was a bit of a pain. So when I replaced that with this watch, which is a Garmin 935, which I think was in 2017, it was just after Ironman Chattanooga that I replaced my 920 with this watch. This had a heart sensor on the back of it. This was a game changer. So in the way that 201 gave me GPS for the first time, this meant I didn't have to wear a heart strap. Everything would be on the watch. So I wore this watch from 2017 right up until beginning of 2022. And I wore it with multiple straps as well. This is not a Garmin strap. This is an aftermarket strap. Here's why. You can spend $40 or $50 on one Garmin strap. And I think the only assumption is that a Garmin strap is going to hold up well to everything that you're throwing at it. This is a Garmin strap. This is a Garmin strap from my 920, and it failed. It failed, and it didn't fail while working out either. It just picked up. I just picked it up one day, and the strap fell off it like this. It was in the drawer. It just broke off. So if you're thinking I should probably stick with Garmin straps rather than aftermarket straps because they're stronger, I don't believe it. Really, I don't. So from the time that I got the 935 onwards, I have relied on straps coming from other companies that might be $10 a strap, something like that. The straps are detachable here with a lug system, which you pull back with a nail and you can then detach the strap. That I think is probably the only possibility of a failure of an aftermarket strap compared to a Garmin one, is if that connector fails. But I have had multiple straps from companies like Movo now for quite some time. I had them on my 935. This is not a Garmin strap. This is actually a olive green over black strap, which is my current mood. I really like this strap. I have quite a few straps because these are $10 each, so it's much easier to buy 4 or 5 of them and not feel like you're spending an awful lot of money on your watch straps. So in the way that the 935 gave me heart rate on the watch, which was a huge deal, this isn't really a game changer in the same way. So I think we're getting to a point now where some of these sports watches, while sports watches and smart watches are really coming closer together now and they're merging, you're not really seeing the same sort of game changer differences that you might have seen in prior years with some of the technologies that came out. So why did I go for this one? Well, firstly, I'd had that 935 for almost 5 years, and I just wanted to change, and it was starting to look a bit beaten up. It was starting to get a bit scuffed. So anyway, along comes Garmin then with the Fenix 7 and the Fenix 7X, and in my case, the Fenix 7X Solar, not the Sapphire one. I chose not to get the Sapphire one because I did take a look at it, and I did feel the display was a little bit more muted on the Sapphire, which other people have also commented on here on YouTube. So I decided, okay, given I'm going to be looking at this display all the time, I'll take the risk that I scratch it over the fact that I'm looking at it all the time, and therefore the Sapphire glass isn't going to be really necessary for me. So anyway, I took one look at this in REI, fell for it immediately and bought it immediately. So what pulled me to the 7X? I got the X because of the size of my wrist. I'm 6'2", 200 pounds. So I just think the 7X suited my wrist better than the standard size 7. The display is awesome. There's a lot more information you can get onto this display. It is larger than my 935 display, so that does make a difference. You can get a lot more information on it, a lot more clearly. It's also more reflective. So I'm looking at it in this light. It's unfair because of the lights that I have on in here. But if I'm outside, I'm inside, I can read this display very clearly with or without the backlight. And the backlight itself is phenomenal. I think I'm running it at 40%. I don't need anything more than that to be able to clearly see this display in any light environment any light environment that I would want. This brings touchscreen to the Garmin Fenix watches. And it's a pretty cool integration. You scroll through the watch, there's haptics as you scroll through the different displays. You can touch and hold on any of the displays that will take into more detail about that particular function or that particular data field. It's a super cool display. Now, I believe that it runs pretty well if you have sweat or rain dripping on it when you're working out. It doesn't interfere with what your watch is doing, but I have it disabled anyway. I find the convenience of being a touch screen very, very useful when I'm using it as a watch, but when I'm out running or cycling or swimming, then it really doesn't help me at all. So I actually have it disabled. Now, typically with my watches, I've taken them off at night. I've taken them off, put them on the bedside table, and haven't paid any attention to them. But with the Fenix 7, there is a sleep function on here which measures your sleep pattern, and it measures it really, really well. So I started wearing this watch at night. Now, it does take some getting used to. It took me probably a month or more to get used to the fact that I had something on my wrist at night. I tend to wear it quite loose, so it wouldn't be constricting my wrist or the blood supply into my hand. I have to tighten it up when I'm running, but I'll talk about that in a bit. So I tend to wear it quite loose, but I do wear it at night now, and I have been doing for a year. I figured that the whole sleep function thing would be a nice gimmick that I would use for maybe a few weeks and then would stop using it. But I'm still using it. A year later, I'm still looking at this and looking at the display, and it will tell me how many hours sleep I got, how much of that was deep sleep, how much of that was REM, how much of it was I awake? Did I wake up during the night? And if so, how long did I wake up for? I find that incredibly useful, especially when it's combined with the body battery, which is something that Garmin had introduced a short while ago, which again, I have to say, I thought was a bit of a gimmick. But now I'm pretty sold on it. So the body battery will measure you from 0 to 100% of your body's perceived capacity in terms of energy. When you sleep, you recharge, and therefore you recharge your body battery during the course of the night. So in the morning, you wake up and you will see how many hours sleep you had, the quality of that sleep, and Garmin will actually give you an assessment as well of that, whether you had fair sleep, good sleep, solid sleep, quality sleep. But the body battery will also tell you how much you've recharged. So for example, you could go to bed at night and your body battery is at 25%. You wake up in the morning and you've recharged 65%. That means you're now on 90% battery in terms of your body battery. Now again, I would see this as a bit of a gimmick if someone was telling me about it, and I wouldn't see a lot of value in it. But now, 1 year on, I'm still using it. What you don't do, or what I don't do, is I don't look at it and go, okay, my body battery is pretty low, so my workout's not going to be very good, so I'll back off on my workout. I don't do that. I tend to look at it more to give me some confirmation of how I'm feeling. I am finding when my body battery is 80% or higher, I'm enjoying my workouts more, I'm feeling more rested, I'm feeling more energized, and it actually feels like I have recharged overnight. If I wake up and my body battery has gone from, let's say, 20% to 55% because I had a bad night's sleep, you can tell. You can tell. Now, if you were to look at it in the morning and then see that you're at 55% in the morning, you're not going to feel too good. I have to say, you're not. It's psychological. You're not going to feel too good, and you're going to think, okay, well, it's going to be a bad day. So I tend not to do that. What I tend to do is I tend to look at it during the course of the day to give me some reassurance about how I'm feeling. Now, what else is on here? Specific to the 7X is this light here, which just seems like such a gimmick. And when I first saw and heard about the light, it was not a deciding factor for me on the side of the watch, but I thought, okay, it might be a nice to have. I'm using this light every day. Every single day for the last 12 months. It is not a light you can read by. It's not a light you could be inspecting underneath your vehicle for something, But if you are getting up at all in the dark or you're moving around a darkened room, it will illuminate the environment for you so you don't trip over your cat, walk into the bedpost or something. You can see your environment. So it has nothing to do with the endurance sports that I'm doing. It has nothing to do with it as an endurance watch. But it is so useful having a light on me all the time, 24 hours a day. So I use it for that extensively. And if I get up during the night at all, I will use that to make sure I don't kick the cat. Now, it can also be set to be used during workouts. So I've also got it set on a running workout, which running rather than treadmill means it's outside. If I'm running between the hours of sunset and sunrise, it will automatically flash that light. So even though it's probably not the most effective way to alert other people to your presence, on a darkened street, it's more visible than having nothing at all. So, and it's there automatically. So as soon as I start doing a run, anytime at twilight, which around here at the moment is something like 5:30, 6 p.m., it will start flashing. I like the aftermarket straps. I've talked about those already. I love those. So those are fantastic. And overall, the appearance of the watch, this looks like a super rugged watch. On top of that, the display is very, very clear. I actually have the standard display, which means in the middle of the screen above the time, it actually shows how my working out is going. So right now, it's showing that I am productive, which is good. But at certain times of the year, like maybe a few days after the holidays, or maybe if I've been doing something else and haven't been working out so much, it will say something like unproductive. And that's fully on display at all times to anyone who happens to look at your watch face. Mind you, that's a good motivator. I can tell you, when you see unproductive or even worse, detraining, it's a pretty good motivator. It will also tell you if you're overreaching. So, and if you ramp up your training too quickly, which is something I'll talk about in another video, it will also tell you you're doing that too. But when I see productive, I feel good. So what don't I like about this? Well, firstly, it's a very bulky watch. And while I would say it's probably a little bit too bulky, I'd rather have this than the 955, which is a lot smaller, a lot slimmer, but is a lot less impactful, I think, when I look at it every day than this one is. The bulk also does one other thing. As I said earlier on, I tend to wear this quite loose, but when I go running, I will tighten it up. And I'll have to tighten it up for two reasons. One is to make sure that the heart rate sensor is close enough to my skin and is therefore as accurate as an optical heart rate sensor can be. But secondly, if I don't do that, it moves around. It actually moves around your wrist quite a bit when you're running because of the bulk of it. It weighs about double what the 935 did. And the 935, you never notice it on your wrist. You do notice that this is on your wrist. So you tend to have to ratchet the strap in a bit more. And the last thing, and this has been really, really picky, is you still have to charge it by plugging it into a cable. So 1 year on, I'm using pretty much everything that I was using at the beginning. There's a whole load of things that this watch does that I don't use at all. I don't ski. I don't paddleboard, or I very rarely paddleboard. I certainly don't ski. So there's a lot of things on this watch that I have never ever used. In terms of the workout modes that are on it, I do use strength training. I do use what I've set up as core and stretch, so basically working out. I use treadmill running. I use outside running. I use it for cycling. I use it for swimming. I use it also for Vasa swimming, which is basically swimming on dry land, so swimming without getting wet. Now you have to set it up to be able to do that. There's no specific function on the watch to work with a Vasa swim ergometer, but it's very easy to set up, and actually Garmin watches have been doing that for a while. So I have that programmed in too. So there's quite a few different workout settings that I have set for this watch, but I'm probably using 20% of what it can do. There's a whole bunch of others. I think it can do rock climbing, it can do paddleboarding, it can do skiing, it can do snowboarding, it can do a whole bunch of other things that I do not use and I will never use. Would I recommend it? Yes, absolutely. As an endurance athlete, it's as close to a smart watch as I think a endurance watch can get. I'm very, very happy with it. I do use it also with my iPhone and the Garmin Connect app. Prior watches, I didn't have the Garmin Connect app running. I would just switch it on to synchronize and then disconnect it again. Now I leave the Garmin Connect app on all the time, which means that this watch is always being fed with various bits of data. And Garmin Connect is also being fed with my heart rate data, my sleep data, my workout data immediately. So everything is always synced. So I tend to run that app all the time. Probably the closest competitor to this that I would have considered is the Apple Watch Ultra. I'm a bit of an Apple fanboy. I have pretty much everything. I have a Mac, I have an iPhone, I have a couple of iPads, I have AirPods, I have AirPods Pro, I have yeah, probably like a lot of you, I have way too many Apple devices, but this is one that I am not prepared to switch yet. For a couple of reasons. I think the Apple Watch Ultra has come much, much closer to getting to something that I would consider using. When the Apple Watch came out initially, I did look at it seriously, but it was just not practical for someone doing endurance sports. None of my ant sensors would have worked with it. It didn't have the battery life that was long enough. I would have to keep it charged all the time to make sure that I have enough battery life to do any workouts. And the display and the setup of the watch just were not really suited for an awful lot of working out beyond an occasional run. I think with the Apple Watch Ultra, they're getting much, much closer to that. But it does, to me, it still does not feel as robust and solid in terms of the apps that are on there, as well as the physical watch itself, compared to this. I'm trading off a lot with the display. This is definitely nowhere near the display of an Apple Watch, and therefore a lot of the smartwatch capability that you can have with an Apple Watch Ultra, you frankly don't get with the Fenix. But I charge this maybe once every 12 days, and I'm doing between 1 and 3 hours of working out every single day. And even then, I'm not at a point where the battery life is really low. I'm just doing it because I think it's probably a good idea to do it. So I'm not going to be at all concerned about whether my battery is going to get through a workout, whether my battery is going to get through an Ironman race. I have no concerns about that at all. It's going to do it. It's going to stay the distance. So that's it. I hope this is useful. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.